Alright, this is the last video in my Twine 2.1 series. First one is introduction to basic concepts like the passage. Then we talked about how to make the games look nice with CSS. Then moved on to how to add images and music. And now the last one is about variables, programming, conditional statements. I mean, it sounds the most frightening. Actually, Twine makes it really easy. And I'm going to start off really quickly just with an example of what you might use it for. So I'm going to make a new game called the name game. And remember, all my instructions only work if you're using the SugarCube story format, which, as you'll remember, by default looks really gross. Alright, I'm just going to do this really simple thing where I'm going to make a start passage, and it's going to ask the player of this hypothetical game for their name. By the way, you will find all of the code for all of this on my website, adamhammond.com/Twine guide. Just go down to the variables and programming section. So I'm going to say, enter your name. Then I'm going to use a SugarCube macro. You should be familiar with this concept if you've come this far. No, SugarCube macros are not just about music. They're for all kinds of things too, like variables and stuff. So we're using some scripting macros, and then we're using this one text box from the interactive section. So we're going to create a text box. That text box is going to store whatever the user enters in the text box into a variable called name. I'll talk more about variables in a second. And then I'll say, when you're ready, click here. So when they're done, they'll be taken to another passage, one called here. And here I'm just going to say, well, hello there, name. The point of this game in the hideously ugly default SugarCube story format is that someone enters their name. That's my full name, and then they click enter, or sorry, click here, and in the next passage it says, well, hello there, Adam Nicholas Hammond, i.e. my name. You remember that down here, we did not write out my full name. We wrote hello there, and then a $, and the word name. $name is a variable. Its contents can be varied. Up here, we had used this text box macro to create a text box and then to stick whatever they put into a variable called name. Variables in Twine always have to have a $ in front of them, but they can be called whatever you want. So I decided take whatever information the user puts and stick it into a variable called name, $name. And then on the next page, I'm like, okay, write, well, hello there, and then print out whatever is in that variable $name. It does not literally write out a $ and the word name. It writes out whatever the user put in. So they can be like Tweedledee, and then hit here, and then it'll say hello there, Tweedledee. They can enter Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and it will print out whatever they put in. They can put in a number, and it will put out whatever they put in. Okay, so that's kind of what variables are, and one of the possible uses. Like, you could remember throughout your whole game, you could keep being like, hey, and then put whatever they put in for their name and just remember the name. So there's one sense of what a variable is and of how you might use it. So let's delete this, and I'll give you another example. Actually, yeah, okay. We'll probably end up typing this back in a second. But okay, variables. What are variables? Variables are, I like to think of them as like envelopes. And you need to like give a name to the envelope so you can refer to it, but you can put whatever you want in. You can put a number into an envelope. You can put some text. You can put names, for instance, into an envelope. Or another really important one for programming is the envelope can contain the words true or false. So in Twine, you can create and set an initial value to a variable by being like set name to Adam. That would create a variable called name, and remember they have to start with a $, and its initial value would be Adam. Anytime you're setting a value to text, you need to put quotation marks around it. I could also set a variable I'm calling num to a number, and it can be like 99, and numbers, as you can see, do not take quotation marks around them. And then I can set a variable, say, called has key to false. That's a Boolean variable, it's called. Actually, why don't I call it bool so we remember Boolean variables. Booleans basically are true or false. They can only be one or the other, and they don't take quotation marks around them. So this is a kind of an unnecessary step, but I'm going to, in one passage, going to initialize a bunch of variables, and then I'm going to just print out what their values are on the next passage, which I'm going to call here. I guess I got confused last time. Variable is name. The value of the second is num. The value of the last is bool. So this should just, I'm not asking the user to put in anything, I'm setting them in the background, then when they click here, it's just going to print them out. So there's the 3 types of variables that I want you to keep in mind. Okay, so there's some theory. Now let's go back to our fun example where we asked people to enter their names and do a little something more. Enter your name, text box, take it, whatever they write, and stick it into a variable called name. This here is just like by default what you want to appear in the box. By default, we're saying don't put anything in the box, but if we wanted it to have the word name in it by default, then we could do that. But this is just going to say enter your name, make a text box. It will stick the value of whatever a user puts in into the variable name, then ask them to click here. So last time we had the second passage just said your name is, and then we would print back whatever they wrote. So if we did Adam, it would just say your name is Adam. Okay, not learning much. Okay, now we're going to do something way more fun, which is called a conditional statement. This is where we really get into the power of variables. Okay, I want to do a thing where it's like, okay, if the user of my game, and imagine it's on a website, the programmer, creator, have no idea what people are going to put in or what their names might possibly be. If they enter a name that I recognize or like, I'm going to have one kind of response, and then if they enter a different name, I'm going to have a different kind of response. So let's say that, okay, in this situation, I'm going to say if name, i.e. if the value that the person entered is Adam, then I want to say, hey, my name is Adam. What a coincidence. This is called a conditional statement, and this is how they start. If, in 2 pointy brackets, name of the variable is, you can also use an equal sign, but we're word people, so we're going to use that, is Adam, and because I'm talking about text, I need to always put text between quotation marks, then give them this very special message. Else means otherwise. If it's not Adam, then write, that's disappointing. So that's my whole conditional statement, okay? The options are, if it's Adam, give them a certain message. If it's anything else, give them another message, and then I'm now going to close off my conditional statement. This is quite important. I end it with a /if. Play. Okay, if I enter Adam, it says, hey, my name is Adam too. What a coincidence. Notice I do not see that else thing. That's only if name is not equal to Adam. So if I play again and put Tommy, then it says, that's disappointing, and that's it. Okay, we can put in more conditions. If it's Adam, do that. Now, else if, meaning otherwise, if name is equal to Tommy, write this message. I specifically dislike you, Tommy. Else if name is right. That's my cousin's name. So what this now slightly more confusing and complicated conditional statement is saying is, first condition, if the name is inputted as Adam, say this text. Otherwise, if the name inputted is Tommy, give that message. Otherwise, if the name inputted is Johnny, give that message. And if none of those is true, then just write this catch-all message. That's disappointing. It's going to execute in that order. First it's going to check that one, then it's going to check that one, then it's going to check that one, and if none of those hit, it's going to go there. But if like name is equal to Adam, it's going to write out that message. So if I write Adam, we already know what's going to happen. If I write Tommy, it says I specifically dislike you, Tommy, just as instructed. If I write, what was it, Johnny, then I get that message, and if I write anything else, it just gives the catch-all message. The way that this gets kind of fun from a narrative perspective is, imagine that the only way to play your game is to enter the correct name. It's almost like a password. So if the person enters Adam, it says, hey, that's my name too, what a coincidence, let's begin the game. They see a link. None of these other names see any links at all, and so the game does not begin. Let's just say that the whole point of the game is just to enter that name. So I hit play, I enter Martin. All I get is, that's disappointing. I'm not able to actually play the game. But if I enter Adam, not only do I get this special message, but I can now click on that passage. And in this case, I win right away. So these are the cool things that you can do with variables and programming that you simply cannot do if you don't know about them. It's pretty cool. So variables, it's a way of, data changes, they hold different types of contents, and then conditional statements will evaluate what the contents of a particular variable is, and based on what it is, it will have different results, different narrative possibilities. Okay, on the website, in the guide for this particular section, you're going to see all kinds of different examples of applications of variables. You're going to see the name one, and you're going to see this one is like using a key. We're going to implement that in hallway game. So this hallway game, which we've been working on since the first video, is kind of dumb. Not much happens. We're not going to make it a whole lot smarter, but we're going to make it a tiny bit smarter, okay? What we want to do is, when the game starts, you do not have a key. But we're going to make this thing where, say you go into the door on the left, i.e. that white door where there's not much of exciting to see, you don't find the key, there's no key there, you continue into the next room, you don't have a key. But here, this is a very game-like mechanic, right? You go into the door on the right, you will find the key. You bend down, pick up the key, and now you have it. So if you follow this path to get to the next room, you're going to have a key, and if you follow this path, you won't have the key. So then here will be like, only if you have the key can you continue on to the next one. Okay, so we're going to deal with all this by creating a variable called hasKey. We're going to make it a Boolean. Booleans are true or false, which is like you either have a key or you don't have a key. There's no other option. So we're going to initialize in our first passage. We're going to make a variable called hasKey, and we're going to set it to false. Since it's a Boolean, we don't need to put quotation marks around it. Set hasKey to false. In this passage over here, we're going to change the text around a little bit. On the ground, there is a glorious shining key. You bend down and pick it up, and then you enter the next room. Okay. So that's the text that we need to describe what's going on. The programming we now need to change the value of that variable. Set hasKey to true. Previously, hasKey had been false. On the first passage, the initial value of that variable was false. Only if you get to this door on the right passage is it going to reset the value of the variable to true. Here we might give a hint to the reader being like, there are no keys or anything to pick up. Actually, let's move that a bit higher up. Stick that sentence there. Okay. Now in this room, we're going to change it around a bit. You're in a boring break room. There's a pop machine. You sit in the uncomfortable couches for a while. Eventually, you notice that there is yet another door you can try to enter. You walk up to it. Okay, here we need a conditional statement, okay? We're going to say if the variable hasKey is true, so if they picked up that key in the previous, they took the right path and picked up the key, you try the knob and it doesn't open, but then you think of trying to insert the key you found a while back and turning it has the desired effect. You enter another room. So here let's make a link and use a pipe to say like win. Take into a passage, the winning passage. I'm going to take out all this stuff. Okay. Otherwise, else, there's only two conditions here. Either you have the key or not. So we don't have to do that else if hasKey is false, because if it's not true, it's false. There's only two ways. So if hasKey is true, then you put your key into the knob. Otherwise, if it's false, you see that there is a keyhole on the knob to this other room, but you don't have a key, so you're stuck here, I guess, forever. The end. Now we're going to close off our conditional statement by doing /if. Okay, so if all of this works, we should create, there should be a new passage created called win. Only if you take the right path and pick up the key will you get to go to the winning condition. Now, right now there's this poor UFOs passage that's now totally useless. I will take one thing out of the UFOs passage. I'm going to copy that audio code so that we get like the happy song when we get to the end. And I'll just have it say, you walk into a beautiful dewy meadow and are so happy and are so glad you pick up that key and totally win. The end. All right, let's play this and see if it all holds together. So we start the game. Remember, we're in preview mode, so we're not going to hear any music or see any images, but just previewing to make sure that the logic works. We take the door on the right, pick up the key, enter the next room. You notice that there's yet another door. Try the knob and it doesn't open, but then you think of trying, okay, this is the text that we only wanted to show if we had the key, so it's worked. It got that we picked up the key. Click, and we win. But if we take the other path, we go into the door on the left, and there's no keys or anything, and we enter it, and now we don't see that link. It's totally not visible. So we're stuck there, and that's it. So that worked. All the programming there worked. We got this cool key mechanic. Maybe we want to have just like a special CSS class tagged on this last thing that at least indicates visually a little bit that we have won. So let's just make our CSS class win and make it background color pink, the most celebratory of the colors. Now I'm going to publish that to file, stick it where I've been sticking it before. It's published now. Go to Documents, Hallway Game, double click. There's my music. Let's do the winning condition. Door on the right, find the key, enter the next room, enter the last room, happy music, pink background, we win, successful game. So on my website, you'll find another example of an application of programming about creating like a happiness meter or a health meter, another thing, like think of it almost as like hit points. Depending on the path someone takes, certain things can make them happy or not happy, and then at the end, you need to be happy enough to have a particular outcome. If you're interested in a pretty stupid demonstration of a game that works that way, you can go to my game, boston2.html, which will show you a story of a raccoon on a business trip, and at the bottom of every single passage is a happiness meter. So if he does something really smart, like clicks on this link, that will make him a little bit happier, and you can see his happiness level increases. And then he eats some pizza, and that makes him really happy. So that's all controlled with programming for a happiness variable, and you'll see how to do that on the Twine guide under programming. So you kind of know everything that you need to know at this point if you followed all the videos. The key now is just Google stuff. If you want to know, like, okay, I can add music, I can do effects, I want the music to start at a particular volume, or I want to know how to do a happiness metric in my game, or I want to do some particular visual effect. It's up to you now to Google like CSS, like how did I get rounded edges here? Google CSS rounded edges and stuff like that. It's once you have the basics, it's your responsibility. It's up to you. You have the tools to do anything you want, and you can go out and do them now. So that's it for my Twine 2.1 guides. I hope they're useful.